to the alarming deaths of Palestinians and Israelis as well, because one life lost is one life lost too many, regardless of religion or creed, citizenship or nationality. And we want to see the suffering in Gaza, in the West Bank, even in Israel, in other parts of the world to a halt. So having said that, I read the DFA statement, and I may not agree with abstaining on the vote. If it were I would have voted in favor of a ceasefire. It's not meant to be. I'll stop there.
So,
I am in favor of a humanitarian ceasefire so that no more innocent lives, regardless of nationality, will be lost, and so that as well the hostages held by Hamas, there must be negotiations. So I stand with the United Nations Secretary General's call for a human pause and a human corridor so that medicines and supply can be brought into Gaza. But I will not venture into that. I just want it very, very clear. I stand with the United Nations Secretary General's unceasing call every day for a humanitarian pause and ceasefire. But I respect the Department of Foreign Affairs decision, and it was explained to me thoroughly and clearly by the Secretary of Foreign Affairs, because there are Filipinos who are still missing, and we must be able to communicate very clearly and diplomatically with Israel, because they are in that jurisdiction. So I just wanted to make it clear, Mr.
I understand completely, Mr. President, and
You can stand up.
and how do we address him, ma'am? What's the position of the head of the Foreign Service Institute?
Mr. President, the Director General
Director
of the
General.
Foreign Service Institute.
We wish you all the best, sir, kasi ang pangarap natin is, we punch above our weight class in the international arena. In my simple understanding of your structure, baka nakasalalay po sa FSI.
Hiningi nga nila 94? Ilan billion? 9.
Billion?
9.
Foreign Service Institute.
Ang binigay na.
Billion ba to?
No, okay. Let me. So 12 is...
Yes,
You're
it's
happy-
reasonable.
You're happy with 12 million? Kala ko 2 lang binigay sa Sunny rin. Yes.
Yeah, we don't want them to be overwhelmed with funds that they cannot utilize their budget. Now, with the Technical Cooperation Council of the Philippines, the challenge is how to make this more relevant. Madam,
Remember,
Mr. President, yeah.
We were together during
Yes,
the
budget.
hearing.
The budget is very reasonable, pero siyempre we want to make this more important, more relevant. And then sabi niyo, it's a technical assistance to the Pacific Islands yata, to the how do you call that? How do you call that place? Small island states.
It's South-South cooperation, but now we're focusing on
South-South
Pacific Islands. Pacific Islands.
Have we ever covered the Marshall Islands in our technical cooperation?
Yes. The Marshall Islands, yes,
Yeah.
is included.
Actually, ginamit ko po yun during the investigation of what committee? Led by the Justice Committee about the collision at Dearborn, the collision with the Marshall Islands registered ship. Yes,
Assistant.
I appeal to the goodness of the heart of the Marshall Islands just to, immediately settle, compensate the victims, help them. And then I mentioned this particular council, that this is the proof that the Philippines has close relations with Marshall Islands. So palakasin po natin ito.
Where is TC? Who's the head of technical cooperation? We're helping the Marshall Islands.
Ano yun? Ano yung issue ng Bangyang-Banggaan? Dear, yung sa
And you said we're helping
Zambales
also
Justice Committee.
the technical cooperation. Let me correct myself. The technical cooperation, the TCCP has not helped Marshall Islands, but the DFA itself, through ASPAC, the Asia Pacific desk, ang tawag nun, has helped Marshall Islands.
Okay. So I'm back to my original proposal, Mr. President, to make that council more relevant. So I was just I was hoping na it would be relevant in that particular case, pero it turns out it is not. So palakasin po natin ito kasi sayang din po ito, yeah.
I would be happy to receive recommendations from the good secretary and the minority leader as well on how we can utilize more and make it more relevant. Yes.
So thank you for that. And then the presidential.
If you would like to have an augmentation of their budget with certain programs, we would be happy to receive it.
I think they should be more proactive, Madam Chair. I think they should reach out to brief us
Yes. Maybe
what they do and how they can be more relevant. Ganun na. Mahirap kami mag-isip how to make them more relevant. Challenge, let's just issue the challenge to the head of
I agree with
the
you.
council.
Yeah.
Sayang po kasi ganun yung situation eh. I'm sure the DFA knows about what happened there, diba? Sabi yung Marshall Island registered vessel, tanamaan yung isa nating fishing vessel, therein, 3 Filipinos died. I think beyond territorial sea na yon. I think within EEZ pa yata yon. I mean, yes, a few kilometers beyond Bajo de Masinloc. Ano na nangyari? So I was appealing to them, don't be too legalistic kasi yung kanilang head ng kanilang maritime board is a Filipino of Marshall Islands. So I was appealing to the Marshall Islands government through our fellow Filipino who happens to be a member of their government or a maritime board to shortcut processes. Don't be too legalistic. Help already the victims. Wag nang hintayin yung determination of liability. So, and I was citing the closeness between the peoples of the Philippines and the Marshall Islands, our collaboration, the assistance that we have given the Marshall Islands. So mali ako, it's through the DFA and other program, not the Technical Cooperation Council. But at least meron tayong close relations with them. That's a fact. Is that a fact, or that's not an accurate statement of fact?
It is a fact, Mr.
It's a
President.
fact. Okay. Now, can I go to the Presidential Commission on Visiting Forces? Is that chief here at the head? Who is negotiating this reciprocal access agreement with Japan? Who is the lead negotiator or agency? Is it the Presidential Commission Visiting Forces? Is it the DFA? Is it the DND?
The Department of National Defense, the Department of Foreign Affairs, and the Department of Justice are negotiating the possible, what do you call it, RAA, the Reciprocal Access Agreement with Japan.
Yes, and the RAA is in the same nature of a VFA.
It's similar to a VFA.
If it becomes a treaty, will it expand now the responsibilities of the Presidential Commission on Visiting
No, that's
Forces?
for the U.S. Mr. President, I believe that the oversight committee bang tawag sa inyo, the Philippine Visiting Forces Agreement Bureau under the DFA was only created for the US VFA.
Okay.
I don't think do you cover the SOVPA with Australia?
Yes. Yan na nga, even Australia's covered. That's,
Are you sure? I think it's just a US VFA, right?
Kaya nga, so during our committee hearing, it was established, it's both our VFAs with US and Australia. that is the Presidential
So,
Commission
you're
making
correct
sure,
in saying,
making sure. So ang
assuming,
tanong ko, assuming the RRA becomes a treaty, it's in the nature of a VFA, will that be under your commission? Okay. And the function of your commission is to make sure that, what?
it's a commission to look into the exercise of the function of the treaties we entered into for visiting forces, namely the US VFA and the Status of Forces Agreement with Australia.
Is the commission head in the loop? The developments in the RAA negotiations.
Just so that you know, the commission head
Yes,
during
you're
our
not involved
hearing,
nga. I know you're not formally involved. The head is not formally involved.
No,
Yes.
it's a different person now.
Yes.
Bago po, pinalitan. Kaya kakaupo lang po October.
Yeah. Actually, what I'm telling you is be interested na in the terms, Mr. President. Well, anyway, the terms are still confidential. We cannot divulge the terms.
Is a question on the reciprocal access?
Yes, with Japan.
Yes. We know that last November 3, during the bilateral meeting, Mr. President, between Prime Minister Kishida Fumio and the President Marcos, the Philippines and Japan agreed to commence the formal negotiation on the Reciprocal Access Agreement, or the RAA. So the Status of Visiting Forces Agreement, or the RAA, with Japan was a commitment made at the inaugural of the Philippine-Japan Foreign and Defense Ministerial meeting in April of 2022. And it was reiterated during the President's official visit to Japan in February of this year. So Japan highlighted the need to find a way to handle sensitive and critical issues, specifically on criminal jurisdiction of Philippine and Japan forces, as the Philippines does not have death penalty, unlike Japan. So once both sides have reached an understanding and found possible ways to deal with the death penalty issue, and the presence of counsel during interrogation, a formal decision can be made to commence the RAA negotiation. So we're just, malayo pa po, check muna, because paano ba yun? Isa may death penalty, isa wala. So wala pa talagang masyadong negotiations, no?
We are going to commence negotiations.
They will still commence negotiations, formal negotiations. So it's just consultation. Consultation is ongoing among the DFA, the DOJ, and the DND in response to Japan's questions on this critical issue. There has been an initial virtual meeting between Philippines and Japan. So we also received a copy, a special authority to negotiate the RAA in favor of select officials. And this is a special authority. I have it here. I don't need to read the names into the record, but this is a special authority. So it's very new. It's still consultations. All we know is that there are 3 agencies in charge. There's no formal negotiations yet, and that important issue, because one has death penalty, the other country, we don't have.
Yes.
So let's see if there will actually be negotiations. And usually negotiations take so long, several months, even years, right? Years.
Although my distinguished colleagues, I'm part of those who are pushing for the RAA with Japan. The RAA with Japan will have a precedence with Australia, because Australia does not agree to the death penalty. So Australia, after several years of negotiations, has come up with a template. I had spoken to the Australian ambassador, and it is a template that can be used by the Philippines when it comes to dealing with heinous criminals of both sides, being done either in their country or in our country. Although our country no longer has a death penalty, but there is a special template for Australia as well as the UK. There is also a reciprocal access agreement for the UK and Japan, and UK also does not have the death penalty. So meron na pong template on how to deal with that issue.
Thank you for that, Mr. President.
And from the DFA's perspective, when does it intend to involve the Senate in the RAA, in the issue of the RAA? Because the Senate plays a part in foreign policy.
Yes, Mr. President. Of course, it is considered a treaty, and we will need to concur with it. It will be sent here. But as I said,
Okay.
it's still starting. Negotiations have not even started, and they
Yes,
anticipate that by next year, hopefully, according to the secretary, that negotiations will be finished by
If-
2024, after which there's a long process until such time that it reaches the Senate for concurrence.
Yeah, so it
No,
is
not concurrence, it's
It's-
for the
ratification.
Ratification.
concurrence in the
And
ratification.
Yes, that's correct. So it's the same old template. I thought we would be, be more proactive, Mr. President. The DFA will involve us earlier since the Senate also has a role in foreign policy
Yes.
determination. So I was disappointed with the answer. So sana more
No, I will,
involve the Senate earlier. The Senate President is very
Yes,
interested in the
Mr.
topic.
President, you don't have to be disappointed because I was going to finish my statement. That as early as now, they can actually schedule a briefing with us on where we're at, on the benefits of the RAA, on the sticky points, sensitive issues, if any, and we can actually, because they will still negotiate treaty. Remember when we concur in a treaty, and you know this very well, we just have to say yes or no. And so while they will still commence negotiations, it is important that we already tell the executive department what are our concerns so that this can be made part and parcel of the negotiations. The Senate President is very actively supportive of this. I am not certain if Your Honor is supportive of this, but everyone's recommendations on how to make sure that this RAA would benefit the Philippines, I think is in order. So perhaps after the deliberations on the budget, we can ask the Foreign Affairs Department to brief us on the RAA.
Maybe just to add even further, to support the position of the minority floor leader. I think I know where the minority floor leader is going to, is that if we can actively also support or assist in the draft, making of the draft. So it will also be smoothened out in the deliberations on the floor
Yes.
here. And we might even get those who are skeptical might even be able to vote with us. Comes the time when the time comes rather, that this is taken up on the floor. I guess there's certain constitutional issues that Senator Coco Pimentel would like probably to be addressed by the RAA. And I don't think it would hurt, Secretary, to maybe we can have a small, we can come up with a technical working group from the Senate to support, no, to join in the discussion so that their good minority floor leader can be briefed time to time, and of course his inputs can be listened to and hopefully considered for the draft reciprocal access agreement.
Actually, Mr. President, I am not really limited by the subject matter. I'm not interested in the earlier involvement of the Senate because it's the RAA. It's because it's a recognition of the fact that the Senate plays a role in the foreign policy determination of our country. So we should not be treated as a passive entity waiting for the final product, and then we give it's either our approval or our rejection of the final product. Involve us in the earlier stages so we can, shape also foreign policy.
That's a
Mr.
very good
President.
suggestion.
It's not because of the RAA, Mr. President.
Yes, that's a very good suggestion because unlike the US VFA in 1999, where the Senate, I believe, was not consulted, and same with the status of forces agreement of Australia, I don't recall having been part of it. It was simply the executive department. Perhaps, of course, it would be better because it would come to us eventually. And we don't want something that they worked hard on for several years to be rejected if there are very sensitive issues. So to include the Senate even before the negotiations start, I think that's a wise suggestion.
Let this be the Manalo legacy, Mr. President.
Yeah.
Absolutely, why not?
We can come up,
Be more proactive.
yes,
Yeah.
we can come up with a working relationship.
Yes.
An arrangement, Mr. President. Not for us to micromanage or to veto or to control you, but
Yes.
involve us. That's the point. Involve the Senate where it is appropriate as early as possible, Mr. President. So, at any rate, Mr. President, sige, last point na lang po. Of course, what's happening in Israel, Gaza Strip is really, anong tawag mo doon, involving a lot of Filipinos. We're expressing grave concerns about what we see, what we hear, what is reported, Mr. President. And siguro marami sa ating kababayan na medyo nababahala sa mga nangyayari, concerned sa mga kapwa natin Pilipino nasa Israel at meron din pong Pilipino nasa Gaza. But we are not that myopic na Filipino lives lang po yung concern natin. We're also concerned about Israeli lives and Palestinian lives. At nakikita natin ang great loss of lives. Nakikita po natin. And then we now encounter the report of the Philippine vote in the UN General Assembly on during the 10th Emergency Special Session, Agenda Item number 5. Illegal Israeli actions in occupied East Jerusalem and the rest of the occupied Palestinian territory. So, and as far as we know, the Philippines abstained. So, can we just get an explanation of our vote, Mr. President?
Yes, Mr. President. Okay. I must answer you with caution that first I will read the statement of a DFA. And because I am tasked as a senator to defend the budget of the DFA, I will read it. I have told the Secretary of Foreign Affairs from the day that I read our abstention of my personal feelings. I will not impose my values, my beliefs, my pain to the DFA because I understand the work that they have to do. So let me just do my work and I will perhaps speak about my feelings after this if need be. So the Philippines, I will read a DFA statement just so that it's on the record. The Philippines has issued a number of statements on the developments in Israel and Gaza in solidarity with the global community in calling for swift action to address the scale of human suffering that is affecting populations on both sides. The Philippines, together with the members of ASEAN and the Gulf Cooperation Council, issued a leader statement on the subject on October 20 during the ASEAN GCC summit in Riyadh. The Philippines delivered 2 statements this week in New York during the UN Security Council open debate on October 24, the 10th Emergency Special Session on October 27. The resolution adopted by the UN General Assembly on October 27 has many elements. In fact, they agreed on many elements which the Philippines supports. We supported the efforts of Canada to include a factual mention in the resolution of the attack of October 7, in which Filipinos were killed. And there's also 2 Filipinos missing, right? As of now, still missing. The proposal of Canada sought to achieve, again, this is the words of DFA, more balance in the draft with a condemnation of the October 7 attack by Hamas, which is based in Gaza, that killed more than 1,400 innocent civilians, including Filipinos, working and living in Israel. This was supported by 88 states, but it fell short, unfortunately, of 8 more votes that would have seen this critical element reflected in the important adopted UN resolution. We continue to support efforts of the UN, particularly the UN Security Council, the UN humanitarian system, and the global community to decisively address this crisis and put a stop to the alarming deaths of Palestinians and Israelis as well. Because one life lost is one life lost too many, regardless of religion or creed, citizenship or nationality. And we want to see the suffering in Gaza, in the West Bank, even in Israel, in other parts of the world to a halt. So having said that, I read the DFA statement and I may not agree with abstaining on the vote. If it were I I would have voted in favor of a ceasefire. It's not meant to be. I'll stop there.
So, thank you with that response, Mr. President. So I think it's time to stop, Mr. President. So just as last year, we expressed our support to the DFA and we wish them all the best. We likewise do the same for this year and for. So have a good year next year, Mr. Secretary, and the DFA. Just tell us how we can extend our full support to the DFA. Once again, you are the cream of the crop. You are the face of the Philippines to the rest of the world. So you should be our best representatives, Mr. President, to the world community. So we are here to support you. Be the best.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Let me just clarify, I don't want to be emotional because I am in favor of a humanitarian ceasefire so that no more innocent lives, regardless of nationality, will be lost, and so that as well, the hostages held by Hamas, there must be negotiations. So I stand with the United Nations Secretary General's call for a human pause and a human corridor so that medicines and supply can be brought into Gaza. But I will not venture into that. I just want it very, very clear. I stand with the United Nations Secretary General's unceasing call every day for a humanitarian pause and ceasefire. But I respect the Department of Foreign Affairs decision, and it was explained to me thoroughly and clearly by the Secretary of Foreign Affairs, because there are Filipinos who are still missing, and we must be able to communicate very clearly and diplomatically with Israel because they are in that jurisdiction. So I just wanted to make it clear, Mr.
I understand completely, Mr. President, and the casting of a vote should be taken in the context. They were voting on a statement, on a resolution with particular words. So, haba-haba yun. So we should understand that, it's not a simple
Yes or no.
black or white,
It's
Mr.
not a
President.
simple yes or no.
So we understand, but I just solicited an explanation from the DFA.
And for the record, I'd like to ask the Secretary, how many Filipinos are working in Israel?
30,000.
Okay na.
30 plus
There are
thousand
30,000 Filipinos in Israel.
in Israel, yes, that's right. And I believe they're treated very well there. Is that correct, Secretary?
Hindi pa rin pwede patayin na.
The first 40 in Gaza have exited already.
I'm talking about the Filipino workers.
The way to the
I think they're paid
Philippines.
very well in
Yes.
Israel.
Yes, yes.
Anyway, we'd like to thank our minority floor leader. I know that's a very touchy and sensitive topic, so we can leave it at that.
Yeah.
But before we end the budget, majority floor leader,